Well, our plans have been announced to mark the 50th anniversary of, that most celebrated of albums by the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Doesn't make you feel old.
I'm not 50 yet.
The City of Liverpool has commissioned art, sculptures, theatre and music performances inspired by songs off the album to mark the anniversary this summer. 12
months, 1 week, 3 days. And anyway, joining us from central London, Stephen Budd, who is the co-chair of the Music Managers Forum and an artist manager. Stephen, very warm welcome to you. Rolling Stone magazine compiled a list of the 500 greatest albums ever, and guess which one came out top?
Well, I imagine it probably was Sgt. Pepper's, wasn't it?
It was. Tell us why.
Well, it was the soundtrack to a generation, really, that kicked off the Summer of Love in 1967, an extraordinarily unique and special record. It was one of the first albums to really use the recording studio as an instrument in itself. Their producer, George Martin, really got to work and made incredible arrangements, orchestral arrangements, and got stuck in with the band in a way that he hadn't been able to do up until that point, because all of their previous records had been either made in 1 day or 3 days or 4 days.
Could we perform live, Stephen? Wasn't that the point as well? They could have done everything else live before. There's no way you could do this stuff live, or at least not in the same way.
They stopped performing live. They decided to stop performing live at the end of 1966, and they started recording this album in January 67 with a view that they thought, you know, we're going to make a grand statement here. And they were inspired by the Pet Sounds, actually, by the Beach Boys album that had come out the previous summer that had had such an enormous impact. And again, Brian Wilson was an incredible producer. But this record took everything to another level. And of course, it became one of the greatest and biggest selling albums of all time, eventually selling, I think, around 32 million copies around the world.
And after it, people started talking about the concept album, didn't they? I mean, just looking at some of the singles within it, with a little help from my friends, When I'm 64, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, of course, A Day in the Life. I mean, each one of them, you know, A Day in the Life, absolutely seminal as a single, never mind
my
as part
favourite
of that album
track my favourite track on the album. But you know, they also recorded 2 songs, Penny Lane as well, and you know, for the album that were not then put on the album but were released as singles, which of course were massive hits, you know, and Strawberry Fields, you know, which was very special. But the album itself is absolutely flawless, you know, and really represented the sort of you know, kind of the acceptance of the idea of psychedelic rock in some elements, classic rock, prog rock. It sparked off a whole list of firsts, really, and had an enormous impact on that generation. Of course, quite a few of the songs were very controversial and were banned by the BBC and others at the time because they thought that the drug references, they looked at it and inferred there were drug references in the tracks. Whether or not they were drug references, of course, really only Paul McCartney and John Lennon really know.
Yeah, and of course, a band probably never does much harm to record sales, as we've come to know since then. We keep flashing up images of the album cover, and in a sense that was also one of the more memorable aspects of all this.
Well, for many reasons. I mean, Peter Blake, who was one of the key sort of young artists of his generation, came up with the concept with Paul and John of making an album cover featuring all of their heroes. In fact, they were a couple of their inverted commas heroes, or notorious people as well. They actually wanted to include Adolf Hitler on the sleeve, but had to be persuaded not to put Adolf Hitler on the sleeve, which I'm kind of rather glad about at the end of the day. But yes, that was a very important breakthrough as well, and that album sleeve won the Grammy that year for Best Design, which is the first time a rock record had ever been given that accolade as well. So for many, many reasons, it was an extremely special record. Inside the sleeve, there were cutouts, I seem to remember, of the band as well, so that you could do, you know, if you were a kid, as I was, believe it or not at that time, you could sort of cut up models of the Beatles.
Just don't believe you're 50. Don't believe you're over 50. There you go. Nice to talk to you.
Less said about that, the better. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Bye.